All right, let's talk Oscar Rivas against Dillian White. Fight that a lot of people are saying. First of all, it's a good card. It's actually a decent card. I like the fights on that card. Um, there's I'm gonna do a video on Spilka against Chisora. That's on the card, and you also have David Allen against David Price, which should be a good fight as well. And I'm expecting a knockout in that fight. All right, so all three of these fights, solid fights. Expect knockouts in all of the fights. Well, maybe not so much this fight. This one can go to a decision. But the other two fights, I'm expecting knockouts. Not a bad card. Not a bad card. But let's address this fight. Now, these are just my first thoughts. I know the fight's been announced, but I want to go back and I want to check out some older Oscar Rivas fights. I only seen one, and that was against Brian Jennings. All right, that was my first time me checking this guy out. And he's undefeated, Colombian fighter, 32 years old. He's only 6 foot. Doesn't have the longest reach. His style basically come forward, doesn't move his head a lot. He's not a slick fighter or anything like that. Plain and simple. Shorter guy comes in, throws bombs, throws a lot of looping shocks. Not a high volume puncher. I don't think he lets his hands go enough. And this is part of the reason why I thought he was losing the Jennings fight up to that 12th round. I thought Jennings had that fight in the bag until that final round where he got destroyed. Okay. Um, Very muscular guy. Um, but besides that, Dillian White, extremely experienced fighter at this point. He's fought Joshua. He's fought Hellenius. He's fought Parker. Put Parker down twice. He's fought Derek Chisora twice. He was the first to beat up Lucas Brown. Uh, Listen, the guy he has a very solid resume up to this point. And I've seen growth. I've seen growth. Even him losing to Joshua back then, getting knocked out. Up to that point, he was undefeated. Okay, and he lost to Joshua. Yes, he lost to him. He got knocked out, but he was the first to hurt Joshua professionally. Uh, and he's fought solid fighters since then. Okay, and with all that experience, I've seen growth. I've seen growth in the Chisora rematch. Okay, um, I said this before in a previous video. In the Chisora rematch, even though Chisora might have still been edging that fight a little bit because of his aggression, I like the fact that Dillian White was well composed. He didn't allow Chisora to invite him into another war. Because in my personal opinion, I think Chisora won that first fight. Okay, barely, but I think Chisora won the first fight. But I thought it was debatable. I thought it could have gone either way. But in that rematch, even though White had hurt him previously in the earlier rounds, he worked for that knockout. And I like that. I like to see, I like to see a fighter grow, and mature, and stay composed in the ring, you know. So with that being said, I like White in this fight so far. I think White's jab and his power shots and his body punching, and his maturity in the ring. There's no animosity going towards Oscar Rivas. There's no real build up for the fight. It's nothing like that. These guys got to go in the ring, and I expect Wilder to outbox him from the outside and possibly hurt him. Hurt him and probably land an uppercut while Rivas is coming in, timing him right, landing a big shot, an uppercut or a hook or something, and possibly working for the knockout. I've only seen Rivas fight once, so I don't know how good his chin is or anything like that. But he is fighting a guy that is not afraid to let his hand go, and he throws a lot of punches, and he has a lot of pop, and he has a good jab. He has the height, the reach advantage. He has power himself. I think Dillian White has most of the advantages here, unless he goes into a war where he tries to trade with Rivas on the inside. I think then Rivas has a good shot of winning, because we've seen Dillian White hurt against guys like Chisora. We've seen him hurt against Joseph Parker. Anthony Joshua obviously knocked him out. But I like Dillian White. I think Dillian White, being that Oscar Rivas, even though he needs to get in on the inside and get low and get in close on Dillian White, uh, he's he's not a very slick fighter. You know, he's not coming in, weaving and moving, and he doesn't have a lot of head movement. You know, he's not using a lot of lateral movement. He's pretty much coming straight forward. So a guy like that should be good for Dillian White. You know, if Dillian White wants to engage with him and trade with him, then he'll be in danger. But like I said, I've seen growth in him, and I think he's good enough to be able to at bare minimum outbox and win on points against Oscar Rivas. I think Dillian White is a better boxer than Jennings. I think Jennings moves very well. I think he moves better than White. But I think White has a better jab. I think he has a bigger punch. Okay. Um, and I think he has great stamina as well. I think he's a well conditioned fighter. He can hold his own in the inside, you know, a little sloppy at times, but I think he needs to go back down to working the body though. You know, I think that's one complaint I have with White. I think up until the Joshua fight, he was a great body puncher from the outside. I like his body work on the outside. I saw more of that. But ever since he fought uh, Anthony Joshua, he's become somewhat of a brawler. You know, outside of the last couple of fights, I think after his surgery, I think he's been going back to boxing. You know, and I like that. But in the first Chisora fight, the Anthony Joshua fight, the Hellenius fight, I think he looked more like a brawler in those fights. But in his more recent ones, I think he's been more of a boxer puncher, you know. Not saying he's sticking and moving. He doesn't have the greatest defense or anything like that. But I like that he's working more behind his jab. The only complaint I have is I want to see him do more body work, all right? Slow this guy down so he won't be as dangerous later and he'll be easier to pick apart. You know, so I have Dillian White, even though everyone is saying that this is a dangerous fight, which it is. Um, I still have Dillian White winning this fight. I think he should be able to win this one. All right, but it's a good fight, very very good fight. All right, so that's my thoughts. Like I said, if I feel the need to make another prediction video of the week of, maybe I'll do it on the week of after watching more of Oscar Rivas's fight. But I only seen one fight up to this point, and that's against Brian Jennings. All right, and I just didn't think he threw his hands enough. I think Jennings was up a few rounds in that fight. All right, has a lot of power, but I need to see more. I need to see him work behind his jab more. He doesn't throw a lot of punches. All right, so anyway, that's my thoughts. Make sure you guys subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.